All right, today we are taking a trip to northern Italy, to a place that, when you see it from the sky, looks like someone dropped a perfect stone circle into the middle of the countryside. Seriously, it looks like an alien artifact. But it's not. This is Cittadella, an absolutely mind-blowing piece of medieval engineering, a whole fortress city that's basically been hiding in plain sight for over 800 years. It is packed with stories of war, tyranny, and frankly, just insane survival. The trick is, you have to know how to listen to the stones. And today, that is exactly what we are going to do.
I mean, just soak that in for a second. This quote really nails it. It's not just a town that has walls. This is a town that is the walls. That tight elliptical embrace defines everything about this place. Imagine you're flying over the flat green plains of the Veneto region, and then bam, this perfect geometric shape just pops out of the landscape. It's so precise, so deliberate. It almost feels like a blueprint that just sprang to life. It's a statement piece, and it makes you ask the question right away. How on earth did this get here?
And that right there, that is our mission for today. You know, it's one thing for a single castle to survive, but for an entire walled city to stay this complete, this perfect, it's borderline miraculous. I mean, think about it. It survived sieges, tyrants, the rise and fall of entire empires, and it even survived the invention of the cannon, which should have made a place like this totally obsolete. So for the next few minutes, we are going to become architectural detectives. We're going to peel back the layers and figure out not just how it was built, but why it's still standing, and what its design can teach us about power, conflict, and community.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into its wild origin story, why you'd even build a fortress like this completely from scratch. Then we're going to take a walk on its famous walls and learn to read the history that's literally written in the brickwork. After that, we dive into a really dark chapter with a terrifying villain and a prison so infamous it made it into world literature. Then we'll see how this ancient fortress is actually a buzzing modern town today. And finally, we'll get to the big question. What can a place like this really teach us here in the 21st century? Let's do this. So first things first, why is Cittadella even here? See, most old European towns are kind of messy. They grow organically over centuries, a tangled web of streets that tells a long, complicated story. Cittadella? It's the exact opposite. This place was a cold, calculated, strategic power move, built from nothing with one very specific purpose in mind: domination. What you're looking at here is a full-blown medieval arms race. Back in the 1200s, this part of Italy was just a checkerboard of powerful, rival city-states constantly at each other's throats. So in 1218, the city of Treviso builds this beefy new square fortress. Well, just 2 years later, their arch-rivals, the city of Padua, see this and basically say, oh, no, you don't. Their response is to build Cittadella, just 13 kilometers away, and point it right at them. This wasn't just defense. This was a geopolitical statement. It was a massive flex of military and engineering muscle, designed to project power right into their rival's backyard. And you have to get this because it's so important. This wasn't some existing town they decided to wall off. No. The Padocians picked a strategic spot on the plains and designed the entire thing. Walls, streets, gates, the whole shebang, all at once. I mean, think about the ambition there. It's the medieval equivalent of building a brand new capital city from the ground up. This gave them complete top-down control over the layout, the defenses, everything. It was a blank canvas, and they painted a military masterpiece on it. But here's where it gets really interesting, a total paradox. While the fortress itself is the absolute peak of 13th century military tech, the town inside the walls, that's based on a much older idea. The streets are laid out in a perfect geometric chessboard, a design straight out of the ancient Roman playbook. Why? Because a 2,000-year-old design is still ruthlessly efficient for moving troops and supplies around. It's this incredible blend, a Roman brain inside a medieval body. It's all about order and control, wrapped in this perfect shell of pure defensive power.
And the genius just keeps going. So how do you support a wall that's almost 100 feet tall in places and over 2 meters thick without spending years digging deep foundations? It's so simple, it's brilliant. You dig a huge defensive moat around the whole perimeter, then you take all that dirt you just dug out, tons and tons of it, and you pile it into these massive sloping embankments on either side of the wall. The wall is literally hugged into place by the varied ground they removed to create its first line of defense. It's incredibly elegant, resourceful, and honestly, it's kind of sustainable engineering. They didn't just build on the land, they used the land to build itself.
Okay, now let's get to the main event, the part that makes this place so famous, the wall walk, or that camminamento di ronda.
This is where the stones really start talking. Thanks to an absolutely incredible restoration project, you can walk the entire loop. And it's from up here, about 50 feet in the air, that you can really start to read the fortress's secrets.
That's almost a full mile around. And what makes this so incredibly special is that this is the only fully walkable, medieval, elliptical patrol path in all of Europe. Period. You are literally walking in the exact footsteps of the sentinels who stood guard up here 800 years ago. As you make your way around, you get this stunning 360-degree view. You look out, you see the plains stretching all the way to the Alps. You look in, you see this beautiful maze of red tile roofs and bell towers. It's a perspective that just connects you directly to the town's entire history.
And these numbers, they're not just trivia. They paint a picture of just how intimidating this defensive system was. You've got 32 towers and turrets in total, plus 4 massive keeps guarding the gates. And the height varies, reaching up to 30 meters. That's like a 10-story building. This wasn't just a wall to keep people out. This was a multi-level fortified platform for archers and soldiers. It was a vertical killing field, designed to be completely, utterly impenetrable to any medieval army.
So, how do they make these walls so unbelievably tough? Well, they used a clever technique called box masonry. Imagine building 2 thin, parallel brick walls, like 2 slices of bread for a sandwich. Then you fill that gap between them with this super strong mixture, a sturdy core of river stones, pebbles, and hot-slaked lime. And this stuff hardens into a solid, monolithic core. It's basically the medieval version of reinforced concrete. It is the secret ingredient to why these walls are still standing strong after 8 centuries of battles and earthquakes.
And this is where the wall's life story really comes alive. As you're walking that patrol path, you realize you're not looking at one consistent wall. You can literally see different eras of construction right there in front of you. The patterns of the bricks and stones change. You'll see a section of this really elegant herringbone brickwork, right next to a cruder, rushed repair made with chunky river stones. And each one of those changes tells a story. This part was rebuilt after a siege in the 1400s. This part was reinforced by the Venetians in the 1500s. The wall is like a living document of its own violent, resilient past.
Now, this is where it gets really cool and, okay, a little nerdy, but stick with me. Look at the crenellations, the little toothy bits at the very top of the wall. You'll notice there are 2 different styles. The simple, flat-topped ones, those are Guelph Merlins. They represented the faction that supported the Pope. But then you see these other, fancier V-notched ones that look like a swallow's tail. Those are Jubilan, and they were for the factions supporting the Holy Roman Emperor. These 2 groups were locked in this brutal, centuries-long struggle for control of Italy. The fact that Cittadella has both styles tells this dramatic story of shifting political allegiances. It's the medieval equivalent of changing your profile picture to support a cause, except they literally carved their politics into the stone of the fortress for everyone to see.
But for all its architectural genius and political drama, this fortress has a seriously dark chapter in its story, a period of cruelty so infamous that it echoed far beyond these walls and found its way into one of the most important pieces of literature ever written. You see, every great story needs a villain, and Cittadella's was one for the ages. Meet Ezzelino III de Romano. Just a few years after Cittadella was built, this local warlord conquered it and ruled with just absolute, terrifying brutality. This guy's reputation for cruelty was legendary, even in an era that was famously brutal. He was known for mass punishments, for paranoia, and for taking real pleasure in the suffering of his enemies. He was, in short, the stuff of nightmares. Inside the man's southern gate, the Porta Padua, Ezzelino took over the massive defensive keep. But he didn't use it just for defense. Oh no. He repurposed it as his personal prison, a place specifically designed to torture his political enemies. And the horrors that took place inside those walls, starvation, torture, pure misery, they would become infamous throughout all of Italy. It wasn't just a prison. It was a symbol of his entire tyrannical reign. Now think about this for a second. This prison, known as the Torre di Malta, the Tower of Malta, was so notoriously horrific that the great poet Dante Alighieri himself name-dropped it in the Inferno. In his journey through hell, Dante puts Ezzelino in the 7th circle, the one for the violent, and has him submerged in a river of boiling blood. And he specifically references this tower as the symbol of his ultimate unforgivable cruelty. This little prison in a provincial town became a universal shorthand for hell on earth, immortalized forever. But here is the beautiful final act of that dark story. Today, that exact same Tower of Terror has been completely transformed. It now houses the town's archaeological museum, and it's filled with artifacts that tell the story of this land going back thousands of years, from the Bronze Age through the Romans, all the way to the Renaissance. A place that was once defined by human cruelty is now dedicated to preserving thousands of years of human history, art, and culture. It is such a powerful, profound reclamation of space, turning a symbol of horror into a beacon of knowledge.
All right, after that dive into the darkness, let's step back into the light of the 21st century. Because Cittadella is no dusty museum piece, not at all. It's a lively, vibrant town of about 20,000 people. It's a place where the ancient and the modern coexist in some truly surprising and honestly pretty charming ways. So what is it actually like to live your daily life inside the walls of a medieval fortress?
Well, for starters, you still come and go through the 4 main gates, which act as the primary entrances to the old town. And their names are this constant, living reminder of the town's original purpose. Each one is named for the city it faces. Padua, to the south, the city that built it. Bassano to the north, a strategic mountain pass, and Vicenza and Treviso to the west and east, the very rivals it was built to stare down. The town's military DNA is literally baked right into the street names. And once you pass through those gates, it really does feel like you've entered a different world. You can wander for hours under these beautiful covered walkways, which keep you cool in the summer and dry in the rain. You look up and you can spot these ancient, faded frescoes still clinging to the sides of buildings. And all roads eventually lead you to the massive central square, which is dominated by the town's huge cathedral. It's gorgeous, yeah, but it's not sterile. This is the heart of daily life. It's the living room for the whole town. And this right here really gets at the wonderful, almost surreal contrast of modern life in Cittadella. You have all the classic Italian things you'd hope for. Incredible coffee on every corner, chic fashion boutiques, a giant Monday market that takes over the whole town. But then you'll see charging stations for electric cars tucked away in a medieval square. Every September, they host a massive medieval reenactment with knights and a mock siege. But come December, they build an ice rink in the main piazza. And my personal favorite, as one visitor hilariously pointed out, you can walk out of a 13th century tower and find a cafe that serves, of all things, surprisingly good bagels. It's that blend that makes it so amazing.
So, after exploring the walls, the Tyrant's Tower, and the modern town with its bagels and electric cars, what's the big takeaway here? Why does an 800-year-old fortress, a relic of a bygone era of warfare, still feel so relevant and important to us today? What's the ultimate secret of Cittadella? When you boil it all down, Cittadella isn't just a relic. It's a living document of adaptation. It shows how a community can be shaped, literally, by its architecture, but not be trapped by its original purpose. This town was born for war. Its whole design was about conflict and control. But somehow, it managed to adapt and evolve for 8 centuries to become a place of peace and commerce and culture without ever losing its fundamental character. It's like this. The hardware of the city is medieval, but the software it runs is completely modern. The original operating system, let's call it Fortress OS 1.0, was all about defense and control. But over the centuries, the residents have kept updating the software. And today, that same hardware, the walls, the gates, the central square, it's been repurposed. It now runs an OS focused on community, on tourism, and on creating a really high quality of life. The original design was just so robust that it could handle any software update they threw at it. And really, in the end, the story of Cittadella is a challenge to all of us to look closer at our own surroundings. This place is a masterclass in how to read a building, in seeing the layers of history and politics and human ingenuity in the structures all around us. It encourages us to become detectives in our own towns, to look at an old factory or a weird street layout or a grand public building and just ask, why is this here? What was it for? And how has that purpose changed? What stories are our own walls trying to tell us? You know, this conversation is definitely not over. Cittadella is just one of countless incredible places where design tells a profound story about who we are and where we've been. From ancient wonders to modern marvels, there are so many more of these stories out there just waiting to be explored. And honestly, that's exactly what we love doing here. So if you want to keep going on this journey with us and uncover more of these incredible design stories, make sure you subscribe to the Just Necessary Design channel. You really won't want to miss where we're headed next. Oh, and we've also put together some free documents and resources about Cittadella, which you can download using the link in the description below if you want to keep digging on your own. Thanks so much for watching and stay curious.